On this episode, we talk about Paige on Stone Cold's podcast, WWE 2K16 gameplay news, MizTV, Neville versus Rollins, your questions, and more now on Byte That. Hey gang, what's going on? You are listening to episode 102 of Byte That's Wrestling Podcast, a weekly show where we sit down and we talk about the WWE, and every once in a while we talk about the rest of professional wrestling. Thanks for tuning in and checking out the show. Remember, we are available every single Tuesday night on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, ByteThat.com, and of course for this and tons more, youtube.com/ByteThatCast. My name is Juan Velez. I am from San Juan, Puerto Rico. And as always, we got the full staff in a house. Each person's house, that is. From Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, Keith Poshik.
Oh man, you threw me off guard. Usually I'm second.
Whoa.
I was trying to come up with something.
Up. It's been over 100 episodes.
Gotta keep me on my toes.
Yeah.
All right.
You doing good?
Hi. Yeah, I'm doing great. How are you today?
I'm doing good, man. A bit of a headache, but I'll survive.
Exactly.
Now, from Boston, Massachusetts, this sex stallion, Ryan, what's up?
Not too much, Juan. I actually had a chance to go to an indie show this weekend. So
How was that? I saw a picture
wrestling.
of like Rey Mysterio.
I went to it's NEW. It was called Wrestling Under the Stars. It was in Lowell, Mass. And they had a ton of star power for an indie show. They had Mick Foley there, who did an appearance and autograph signing. Samoa Joe showed up and did a match. So
That's crazy.
Current NXT WWE guy doing a match. That was pretty cool. Mickie James was there. The Young Bucks fought the Kingdom. And the main event was Alberto El Patron versus Rey Mysterio versus Matt Hardy. So it was a really good show, and definitely the Young Bucks and the Kingdom stole the show. It was in like a baseball stadium, and they actually the Young Bucks did a spot where they were like trashing the Red Sox, and they said they could hit a better home run, so they like motioned like they hit a home run, and one of them would run the bases and then come back and do like awesome. A kick to a guy who was on like the railing, and then the other one went and did it, but when he got to the end, he got super kicked. So it was really cool because when does a wrestler get to do a spot with a baseball field, you know?
That's when you think, that's when independent wrestling has that certain thing you'll never see in WWE. The thing I want to ask you is, what's it like seeing guys like Matt Hardy, Rey Mysterio wrestling in a baseball field?
It's weird. You know, it's more like you think about what that's like for them, you know, because and I don't even mean that in like a disparaging way. But it's like to go from, you know, WrestleMania crowds and then kind of back to like, you know, a lot of wrestlers, they say you start in the indies and you end in the indies. It's kind of like a full circle thing.
How many people were there?
There was a good,
more or less.
There was a good crowd. It's definitely like one of the bigger indie shows that you would see like around here that isn't something like Ring of Honor, you know, because, you know, they obviously didn't fill out the whole crowd, but I mean, the tickets, at least for like the seats I had, were like $20, and they had just like a ton of. They had a good crowd, so I'm sure they did pretty well.
Oh my! The show I'm going to is a WWE live show on August 29th, so I'll talk about that. But that's awesome, especially
hopefully they don't do like a live show at the same time where half the roster isn't even in the same country. That would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, let's get to
Still
the better points. Yeah, but mine is shit. Well, I got Jericho at least coming up on the 29th. Hopefully, I'll get somebody else too. But you know, I'm not saying getting Jericho's not good enough, but yeah. A quick update I want to give quickly is I have been reading Daniel Bryan's book. I'll be posting a review over on the channel, but just giving some overall feedback. I'm about 70%, 60% done with it. Have you guys had a chance to read it or anything by any chance?
I have not. It's in my queue, but haven't made it that far yet.
I've just kind of heard things from what other people have read it.
No, it's actually really awesome because, you know, all these books are usually Ric Flair, guys that have had either dark past or, you know, addiction issues, alcohol, family issues. But D-Bride doesn't really have any of that.
So they're from the 80s is what you're saying.
Yeah, pretty much. So with D-Bride's book, he really goes specific about, you know, Ring of Honor, going into wrestling, going to HBK school. Right now, I'm at the part where he just got fired for choking Justin Roberts in the Nexus. And it's really awesome just to hear the mindset because he's so different. Like everything he says, I don't want to spoil it yet, but it is so different from any other wrestler that when you read a book, you know, their enthusiasm or their desire.
So how much of the actual book is WWE centric? Is that just a small portion of it, or?
Well, put it this way. I'm like 60% done reading, and I am now getting to NXT.
Interesting. I like that.
Yeah, it covers when he was first fired from WWE, all the years where he thought he wasn't going to go. He talks about when he was going to sort of have a company with Paul Heyman, when he was about to possibly sign with TNA, beginning with Ring of Honor, peanut butter and jelly tortillas. I have this huge list here. Promo. He had a promo class where he had to teach Vince McMahon how to cut a promo as a challenge. That's where I'm at right now, and it is just
that sounds like the most fascinating
I'd love to see how that went down.
I was grocery shopping while reading that part or hearing it because I was listening to the audiobook version, and I had to have the most stupid smile because I'm trying to figure out this powerhouse of a man, and Daniel Bryan is the person teaching
Daniel Bryan's narrating the audiobook, right? Or at least some of it?
Yeah, pretty much all of it. The only parts he doesn't narrate is the beginning because it's in third person, so obviously it doesn't make too much sense. So it's actually really good.
So does he narrate it like he's reading or more like, oh, then I did this?
You can tell he was struggling to be a little bit of both. Like there's some parts where you can tell he's having more fun. There's other ones where you know based on WWE that's now how he would actually say that. You know, so here he's a little bit more relaxed, but I like how he doesn't try to enunciate everything. It's just him with a microphone talking. So seriously, go to Audible. You know, we're not getting sponsored for this, but if you get the trial, you can listen to it for free. Cost you nothing. You get the book. It's like 10 hours long. I'm like 7 hours in or something. So yeah, look out for the review. Now, of course, we do need to address something that happened over the weekend. Sadly, it happened on Thursday, was found out on Friday. Roddy Piper, wrestling legend. I covered this on the channel. Sadly passed away. Now, this has been a tough year, guys. We lost Dusty Rhodes and Roddy Piper. We've sadly lost more people, but these are two guys that, promo-wise, when it comes to grabbing a microphone, very few have had as much of an impact as they've had. So, you know, now that we had a couple days to really relax, to really think about it, what's your reaction now?
I mean, even though we've had those couple of days, there was a big tribute on Raw. It still doesn't feel real to me. It still feels weird that the fact that just Roddy Piper is gone. Like, I love Roddy Piper. I think he's one of the best of all time. He's definitely up there as one of the most underrated wrestlers in history for what he did for the business, but it feels weird, and it hasn't really hit me yet.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's really sad that we have to have another one of these type of episodes so soon after Dusty Rhodes. But yeah, Roddy Piper, absolute legend, true heel by nature, one of the best heel characters ever. No doubt an influence for guys like CM Punk and Dean Ambrose, and it's just really sad. And now I kind of want to go back and watch Legends House and stuff and just kind of see, that.
You've never seen Legends House?
I haven't. And I've heard there's actually
highly recommended.
There's a lot of good, personal stuff you can see with a lot of these guys. So maybe I can kind of go back and appreciate that more.
Yeah, I actually want to sort of do that too. With Piper, it's crazy because you look at so many video packages and his promos are such a big part of the beginning of wrestling. We can talk about Macho Man, but right at the beginning, you had Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper. I mean, that was it. Really, like in terms of memorable figures. So we lost one of those two.
And even behind the camera, I pulled up a quote here that was taken from Bret the Hitman Hart over the weekend. I credit Squared Circle for finding this one, but he says when speaking about Roddy Piper that Roddy and the Macho Man were leaders in the dressing room. If you think of guys like Hogan, they never did anything for anyone. Hogan went to his private locker room with the star on the door, and no one was ever allowed to knock on the door. Like, Piper was one of those guys that was holding it down in that time. He was one of the real locker room leaders. Like, you could think of him like as an Undertaker or a JBL from that time period. And I think that really, really shows his mark on wrestling history.
Now, there's ways you can really tell because look at that time. You know, when I say that time, think of beginning WrestleMania, all of that. And look at the guys that would actively go to wrestling conventions. Hulk Hogan has always been outside of that spectrum of, hey, let's just go right up to the fans. He's always been way more exclusive. When guys like Dusty Rhodes, Roddy Piper, who's been with Mr. T, all this, he's always been involved. He's always been in these things. Even Legends House. You bring that example up. It's rare for somebody like, you wouldn't see Hogan doing Legends House. It would seem kind of odd. So Roddy Piper, sadly, may you rest in peace. We got a very touching tribute. One picture that really sort of shook me up was that during the video package on Raw, I don't know if you guys saw this on social media, but basically Triple H, Vince McMahon, and Big Show stuck around after the rest of the roster left to watch the video package on the Tron, and then there was just that picture of the three of them standing there, and man, that really shook me up, because that's when you realize it's not just a wrestler. They lost a family member.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's a very powerful image, and maybe they kind of want to be out there with everybody else, kind of just mourning together. I don't know. It's just very very sad.
Yeah. Now, of course, this Raw had a lot of cool stuff. We'll also be getting to a couple of news that we got regarding WWE 2K16. We'll cover the Paige podcast. Now, let's summarize. Paul Heyman. He cut a good promo. You guys enjoyed it, right?
It was a Paul Heyman promo. Guess what? Every time he goes up to bat, he hits a home run on the microphone. Shocking. I know.
Exactly. So we're putting this part on the agenda, and we're pretty much closing it already because he had an awesome promo. He got the job done building the match. So we'll probably talk about Heyman, Lesnar, Taker, that combination next week, depending on how things are progressing. Now, sort of taking it back to the Roddy Piper thing, we had MizTV featuring Cesaro and Kevin Owens. That's the rivalry that's happening. If you also went on social media, there was a huge Cesaro section. Squirt Circle on Reddit really did a great job of, getting all these things out. You saw the signs on Instagram, huge Cesaro session. I don't know why I'm holding my hands up like people can see me, but go along with it. What'd you guys think of? Yeah. What'd you guys think of the Miz's tribute to Piper? Miz is a character that's really arrogant. It's completely out of his element to, put the jacket, or however you want to say it, as a skirt, and then saying that MizTV's the second best talk show. That was awesome. No pun intended.
But he was 100% right. Like when he went to say there would be no Cutting Edge, there would be no MizTV, all these talk shows, if there was no Piper's Pit. Like, you couldn't not address that on that night. Like, MizTV itself was almost a tribute to Piper's Pit in that own way. And I thought it was awesome. I think good for Miz on that one. Yeah,
there's very few times where I think it's completely acceptable to do those kayfabe breaking moments or character breaking moments. But that was perfectly done. And yeah, like Keith said, it was totally, I think, a tribute. MizTV wasn't here just to be there. They were doing it to have a talk show kind of in tribute to Piper. And yeah, I think it was very well done.
Now, what you guys think about the interaction between Kevin Owens and Cesaro?
Do you think it was a kind of a rib that Owens had to say, I own like the Miz's DVDs on Blu-ray or something? I feel like that had to have been.
I don't know.
It's sarcasm.
It's just kind of that like despicable heel Kevin Owens is. Like, that it's all trash, right? But he'll still say it just to buddy with the guy, and then immediately turn his back on the Miz. Like, the second it's not convenient for Kevin Owens to smile at you anymore, he'll immediately turn his back on you. It's that little subtle character development.
Yeah, I think keep in mind, the Miz, I guess, is the equivalent of a cowardly heel. So he sort of buys into the cheaper things. Like that cheap pop was like, oh, really? You have my Blu-rays. It's Kevin Owens. You could tell it was sarcastic. And that made it work because you have two bad guys, but there was that interaction where you just enjoyed it. Now, with Cesaro, I just want to point out quickly, I've said it before. I mean, when the guy goes in the ring, he is a 5-star wrestler. And I'm not talking about 5-star wrestling. Freight Train, he's in another league. And then Zach Hardy, Jeff Hardy, whatever. But now when he gets on that promo on that microphone, it is really hard. Like, Cesaro still seems awkward to me. I'm sorry. I love the guy. I mean, I want the championship on him, but am I just paranoid with this like I was with Owens? Or
I felt the mic work was actually pretty weak. Even Owens, I felt like wasn't as on point as he usually is. but the whole thing definitely kind of came together forced. It didn't really pick up for me until Owens basically told off The Miz saying, let the people who can actually fight handle this. Until then, I felt like the whole segment was kind of weak.
Mm-hmm. It felt like it felt super scripted, and then it kind of felt like they went off of the rails a little bit when Kevin Owens tried to get up, and then the chair stuck to his butt, and then that's when you kind of saw it, like, oh, okay, this is Cesaro's going to take a knock on that.
Laughing there.
Yeah, like that part was awesome.
But it seems to just be a thing where he just can't do that. And I know some people may be disagreeing, but I don't know if you guys had a chance to see. He had that sit-down interview with Michael Cole. He does that weekly on the website. I think that one happened last week or 2 weeks ago. And even then, keep in mind that is pre-recorded, not in front of a live audience. And I had the exact same thing, where I know what he's saying is true, but I don't feel anything from it. When it's written, I get it. So it's almost like have the whole thing be, it's like a story mode in a wrestling game. Either have it written, post the articles on the website, but they got to figure out something because it's just not his strength.
See, if we're accepting just the way WWE is now, that it's just heavily scripted, well, then a lot of this could be on the writers kind of adjusting and learning how to write for some of these guys. Maybe Cesaro I think less is more for him. Yes, he can talk, but maybe we have to script him to say fewer lines or something. Because if they just have him kind of go rambling, it doesn't go over well. So maybe just make him a man of few words and more about action. I don't know. I just feel like it's just not working.
He's this generation's Dean Malenko. Dean Malenko did not have to, of course, WCW.
Absolutely. That's an amazing comparison.
Hey, and he had a version of Dean Malenko's theme in WWE. Think about that. So maybe that was even a connection that somebody in the production truck made once. But they need to figure that out because they don't need to talk. Not every character. I remember a while ago we would say like, oh, every person's theme song has the lyrics. They don't all need lyrics. It's nice to have that balance. So they need to have that balance with the characters as well.
But you're saying that, but earlier in the conversation you mentioned that you want him to be this big champion, right? Like actions can only take you so far, right? Like, am I wrong with that? Because if you want to be the big champion, you kind of have to have both, don't you?
If you look at history, if you look at all the top guys, they can all talk. And maybe is Cesaro ever going to be the guy? I'm going to say probably not. Can he be a top guy? Certainly.
Absolutely.
But is he going to be the guy? No. So he could probably get away with not having to be excellent on the mic.
Yeah, I guess he's going to be the greatest number one contender in contemporary history.
I mean, Randy Orton's mic skills, granted, they're probably better than Cesaro's, but he's not amazing on the mic, and
But the difference is when Orton's on point. When Orton's on point, Orton is on point. Like, we've never seen that out of Cesaro.
Exactly, because keep in mind the context of Cesaro. You have a segment, like we're saying that he didn't deliver, the way Vince McMahon would say, in a segment where he had the audience completely behind him. That was a fired up audience with the Cesaro section. So then, I got confused.
Do you want to have a Cesaro session?
Yeah, a Cesaro session. Yeah,
that's something that you pay a lot of money for in the privacy of your own home.
What about a Cesaro? What is Cesaro? Never mind. Just go. It was going to be a terrible joke.
But he had that. You have The Miz and Kevin Owens, who's somebody that you've known for years. So what other scenario can he thrive on, despite the fact that, maybe overly scripted or something, but damn, it was set up there for success. So I guess we'll talk about that as it maybe progresses, but I think you got one more thing, Rano.
Yes, this might be a little too meta for everyone, but is when WWE forces a push on someone like Roman Reigns, is like the smart version of that the Cesaro section, where a guy kind of goes out of his way to coordinate all these people to hold up signs. Isn't that kind of manufacturing from the other side?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It is, but at the same time, the crowd has the option of not holding those signs. So, yeah, it is.
Now, obviously, a lot of those people holding up the signs are Cesaro fans, but are they at the level that they would normally go out of their way to hold up a Cesaro sign? Probably not. I'm not saying that those people don't like Cesaro, but it's more of a reaction than he would normally get. I don't know. It's just a weird thought in my head that I wanted to put out there.
I think the best example is Fandangoing, where people get Fandango. That doesn't mean they cared about Fandango. It's like, hey, it's cool. I'm in the live audience. You know, I want to be involved in the moment, have an awesome time, so I'll grab the sign. That's a possibility. You know, we don't know, but overall, Cesaro, once again, very solid worker. We'll talk about him maybe next week. Now, Raw started with Rollins announcing that he was going to have an open challenge for his championship, but that the guy had to be less than 6 foot tall and below 200 pounds. Now, I was going to grab my Shannon Moore action figure. I was ready for Shannon Moore, but then we got Neville. And
why?
Well, because remember Brock Lesnar when he was challenging all those years ago, and then all the options were Shannon Moore.
Oh,
okay, for context.
Oh,
one
my
time,
God.
yeah, for context, because I know not everybody saw that. Yeah, Brock Lesnar, as an evil champion, had a challenge where in a little bowl he had different challengers that he could beat up, and then Shannon Moore was apparently the person selected, but then somebody else just keeps pulling out the pieces of paper, and they all said Shannon Moore, every single one of them. And he gave them like the infamous F10, of which like the killer F5 and Here Comes the Pain, that one's animated based on the F5 he gave Shannon Moore. So there's a little tidbit.
More. Everyone wants more of Shannon Moore.
There you go.
Classic Heyman.
Now, I don't want to overall get to the match itself because we know it was good. I want to get to that one moment where the crowd and even us almost thought something was about to happen when he hit that red arrow, and he almost won.
There was even a couple moments where that felt like it. Like I even said to you guys while we were watching it, I would hate to be a referee in Seth Rollins' matches, because when Seth Rollins gets pinned, he lets it go to like 2.999 before he kicks out. He's very good at that. Oh, he might actually win at this point. But
yeah,
I like when they do that. I like when the underdog, for that moment, you feel like the underdog has a shot, because at the beginning of the match, you were thinking like, oh, okay, this is just going to be a challenge. Seth Rollins is going to win and on to the next one. But no, they take you on a bit of a wild roller coaster ride emotionally, and that can only be good.
And funnily enough, last week we were actually talking about that here, where it's not often that just a random challenger has an opportunity for the world title. And here we go. We got it a week later, a great match. The crowd was completely invested, and I think it was really good.
Yeah, this is like almost like an Attitude Era throwback, where there used to be world title matches on TV all the time. So I actually really appreciated it because it was something very different. And I love that they kind of gave you that one moment to think, oh, maybe it could happen.
It's funny that you mentioned how it's an Attitude Era throwback. Once again, going to Squared Circle, somebody likened that match to a spiritual successor to Triple H versus Taka Michinoku for the title in 2000. How, like, you wrote that match off the second it happened, how there's no way Taka's going to beat Triple H. But then all of a sudden there's this moment where Taka just gets so close and you start to believe in Taka. He overall didn't end up winning.
The only difference is that people would believe just a little bit more that Neville could actually beat Seth Rollins.
Poor Taka. Yes. Wrestling legend in Japan, wrestling joke.
Well, he's got a tribute in my heart because we actually named a drinking game rule after him. So he's got that going for him.
What is that rule?
If basically we have it, if you ever played the card game A-Hole, I'm going to bleep it out.
Yes.
But anyway, there's like a president, and if they win, if you're the winner, you become the president.
Yeah.
And if you win 3 times in a row, you get to make a rule. And we have a rule that you must refer to the president as Taka Michinoku. So if they forget to do it, they have to drink.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. Now,
only
the next
for 21 and older.
Well, definitely, yeah. We don't
18 in Canada. Please drink responsibly.
We have a worldwide audience, so I guess it depends on really where you are. But we don't condone underage drinking, okay? Under no circumstance. Now, we're not a fraternity, but apparently we're watching a sorority now on Raw because
that was a hell of a segue, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Damn.
Thank you. I'm proud of it. So we had Team Bad, which is Sasha Banks, Sasha Banks, Tamina, and Naomi. And then we have the Bellas with Alicia Fox. And now the other team, which is Charlotte, Becky Lynch, and Paige, they have the name of the Submission Sorority. Now, okay, I'm just going to take it to you guys.
Let's start this out. Public service announcement. Whatever you do, do not Google Submission Sorority.
I'm going to do that right now live on the show. How back in this be?
Sorry.
If your parents
if you're going
are
to
around,
at least have Google
definitely.
Safe Search on. Because it's pretty bad.
Okay.
Yeah. So what do you see?
I see multiple things where you probably should be an adult to check this out.
As a heads up.
And if you're curious, at least do it in incognito mode on Chrome.
Yes. As a heads up to WWE Creative, before you approve any names, you should probably just do a quick Google search first, just to see what comes up. I mean, Triple H even mentioned on a Stone Cold podcast
I was about to say
about
that.
China, Googling her name and seeing what comes up. And this is supposed to be like, women's wrestling, man. And what if a little girl Googles that to look up Paige and Charlotte and Becky Lynch?
Bobby, I want to look at my idols. But what you guys think of the name then?
I actually like the name.
Google
it's just
searches.
unfortunate, the world we live in.
Yeah.
It's a good name. It's a good name. It's been tainted beyond repair at this point by the world, like Ryan said, but it's a good name. Like, how often do you have a stable where all of the members have a submission finishing move?
Yeah, and it actually works. So, same thing. I think the name, you don't have to explain it. It's a group of people, and they have submission moves. You read the name out, and one thing leads to another. I think it makes absolute sense. I cannot talk.
It's just amazing that they already have so many DVDs out.
Oh, man, no. Let's change it. Let's talk about the Paige podcast, Stone Cold WWE Network. This is, once again, the most unexpected podcast in the way that we didn't really know what we were going to get. It was Paige on the show. Now, I want to get your overall feedback. Once that podcast ended, did you feel satisfied that you stayed up 4 hours consuming some of that Monday Night Wrestling?
It was definitely a very different feel than the other Stone Cold podcasts, and it was the worst one, and I mean that politely, because you're up against Triple H, Vince McMahon, and Paul Heyman. Paige never had a shot, and plus there's so many things to go back in history to talk to all those guys about. And also, it just seemed like, because I've heard interviews with Paige before, she definitely came off like she was very nervous. We know this is like her childhood hero, and she's talking a million miles an hour. And there's some stories I just straight up did not understand. And not even because of like a British accent or anything. It was just like what she was actually saying didn't make any sense to me.
I mean, to be fair, let's be fair to Paige here. If you were like talking to your childhood hero, you would probably be
I'm totally conceding that. Like, I'm totally granting her that.
But no, as far as feel goes, like I enjoyed the interview. I thought it was very good. I like everything Stone Cold's done lately, and it was overall good. The end of it was a lot better than the beginning because you could see Paige started to calm down and really.
And Stone Cold got pissed and pulled out his earpiece.
I'd love to hear that story. I hope he addresses it at some point. But it almost felt like Stone Cold was an old guy who just got divorced and was going back on the dating scene. You know what I mean? Like, he's just sitting there listening, like they went for dinner and he was just listening to her talk, like this younger girl. And
I can't unsee this.
Someone on Squared Circle said it was like a bad Tinder date.
I love Stone Cold's facial expression so much, though. The way, he'll like have that slight nod while somebody's talking, but he looks like he can murder you while he's laughing at you at the same time. I love that.
I love how he totally just no-sold when she was just gushing about him, like being obsessed with him and everything. He was like,
I'm great,
you
but
had
let's
this
talk about like
to
Bull
my character.
McConna.
Yeah, because at that point, when she sort of revealed that he was her crush, and he was like just this blank stare. I love that. Now, the question that I want to ask, Ryan, you say that this is the worst podcast that Stone Cold has had, and I know what you mean. You're not saying like this was a bad one, but if you had to rank it, that this may be the lowest one. Of course, people were complaining about Jericho, where he was more sort of just, conversation, hanging out. But this was very much like that, and she was even on Talk is Jericho, which she referred to in this podcast. So, do you think that maybe Jericho would have been a better fit for something like this, or that the network can have this type of podcast, but maybe Stone Cold doesn't work for this, or what do you think?
I think Jericho might have had a little bit of a better interview, but there was a lot of factors. Paige being maybe overly nervous, this being kind of like impromptu, it was supposed to be Hulk Hogan. This kind of got just thrown together, but it was by no means bad. I think Paige just kind of was going a million miles an hour. They were just not on the same wavelength like you typically see. Austin was at one speed and Paige was at another, and it didn't quite come together till a little bit towards the end.
Exactly. If you think of personality styles, like Paige is at one end of the spectrum and Stone Cold Steve Austin is at the exact opposite. So I do think Jericho would have maybe worked a little better. I mean, it's all theoretical, right? So you can't really say for sure, but Paige, like there's that, even just from the generation that they're from and what they did, like it's just so different. Like at least with Jericho, there's at least that little bit of overlap. Like he's still kind of somewhat on the roster. They can kind of talk about road stories in that respect. But the time Paige started wrestling, like Stone Cold was long retired at that point. So there's no real overlap or like short or stories to share. It was more like her informing Steve Austin instead of them getting together and really just like talking about the past and that kind of stuff. And that's why I think the other podcast with Stone Cold works so well, because it's just them sharing stories about back in the day for the most part and then bringing up like the wrestling business around it. And there was none of that with Paige.
Yeah, that's a really good note, where with the other ones, Stone Cold hung out with those people at some point. But with this, he can interview almost anybody in the roster right now, like Neville, like anybody that is Dana Bryan down, I guess. And all of them are probably going to point out, yeah, Stone Cold, man, you're the reason I got into wrestling, or you're the reason that, you and The Rock, man, Attitude Era. So that is when you realize times are definitely changing.
I think definitely some of the highlights were kind of her talking about why she was the way she was on Tough Enough. Because a lot of people say she's being mean, but she's just being tough on people because that's what the show's supposed to be about. And of course,
it's like they're supposed to be tough enough to take it.
Exactly. And I'm sure we all would have liked a little more talk on the whole Divas Revolution thing, but everyone's talking about the whole she wants it to be the women's championship instead of the Divas championship. And I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone's on board with that except for Vince McMahon, who's all about branding, which I get.
See, that was the one thing that I didn't really like about the interview, is how Paige kind of deflected all of the stuff of the Divas Revolution. Like, Stone Cold wanted to get into it. Like, he straight up asked her, like, do you think you started the Divas Revolution? And in a lot of ways, she really did, but she kind of deflected the question into thanking a lot of people and, like, talking about, well, we all did this together.
Well, I think she's taking a humble approach, which I think is the right path to go. I think they might have just been a little too one and done with questions instead of just, follow up and go a little bit deeper into the thing. But I mean, she's right to give credit to Triple H, because if it wasn't for NXT and him deciding that women should get longer matches, then it wouldn't have happened.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, the only, I guess the last thing I want to bring up that kind of annoyed me, maybe it's her personality or maybe it's her poking fun or something like that, but she seemed unnecessarily apologetic about a lot of stuff. Like when she brought up the women's championship, she's the one that brings it up, but almost immediately it's like, I don't know, like you could tell she was feeling like really uncomfortable about that. And I'm just thinking, like, if there is this Divas Revolution, revolutionize this thing, even if you're not the person in charge, but feel comfortable saying, yes, divas are stupid, we are female wrestlers, whatever, but stop branding us. She could have said that. She might as well have.
I mean, it's almost like she's afraid of maybe some repercussions of saying things like that, considering she's a member of the roster.
Hey, let's think about all the other guests who have been on the show. Okay, Triple H can probably say whatever he wants. Vince McMahon, obviously.
Absolutely
Stephanie
can say what
McMahon.
he wants.
John Cena. Paul Heyman just doesn't give an F. And then Paige, who's an active member of the roster, she's the one where if she slips up is going to get a ton of heat or whatever. So she has a lot more to lose than any of the other guests, because they can pretty much get away with anything.
And I think that's very important to remember.
So before we move on with more conversation, we of course want to get to our announcements. Guys, it's happening. We've talked about it, the trailer, everything. Chicken Shot talked about Dana White. So many things happening, which leads to Season 2 premiere Fight Night happening this Thursday over at youtube.com/ByteThatCast. But we're not, we could just do that and be satisfied. But we have a brand new section launching over at ByteThat.com called FightNight.com. So that's FYTE night.com, which you can go to right now. You don't need to wait till Thursday. Go over to FightNight.com right now. Check out the full roster of our WWE 2K Fantasy League. You can check out the past episodes, a summary of Season 1, our stories, all the good things. Why do we do it? Check it out once again, FightNight.com. And this Friday, by the way, we're coming back with the Twitch streams. Thanks to everybody that hung out with us last week, especially Barnabas, because I know a lot of people stuck around till like 3, 4 a.m. A lot of you, not just you, man. Thanks to each and every one of you for hanging out. And this Friday, it's going to be Wrestling Game Night. We're going to be playing a lot of stuff, including Fire Pro, which I know everybody's been talking about, because the top 10 every single day we get, awesome list, guys. You didn't put Fire Pro. I'm going to play Fire Pro and just figure out if I like it or not. And for the next thing, the contest, Mr. McNulty, it's getting closer. Poem.
As you know, we have our SummerSlam poetry contest going on, so if you haven't submitted your poem already to win a $30 Amazon gift card, one lucky winner. We'll also read a couple of them on the show. So you can submit your wrestling-related poem, could be serious or funny, to bytethatcast@gmail.com, and you have until August 16th to submit your poem. That is bytethatcast@gmail.com, and they will be read on the August 18th show to announce a winner. I read my poem last week, just to, give everyone an idea of what we're looking for, and just, because it's fun to do poetry. Keith's gonna have his today.
I sure am. So stay tuned.
And remember, you must be from the UK, USA, or Canada. I wanted to say that this week. In order to enter, remember, $30 Amazon gift certificate. Get whatever you want. You can get the Dana Bryan book. You can get a used pair of underwear. Amazon may be selling it. I don't know. But, you could get that Ablibs thing. You'd be surprised at how many used things Amazon... Keith is looking at me. I have seen some things.
I fully believe you that there are used things on Amazon, but really,
and it
you went
probably
there?
ties into the submission sorority.
Yes.
But yes, and for the other stuff, that's youtube.com/ByteThatCast. We have the spotlights, all that good stuff happening. We are going to have more SRTs. We are preparing. We're, getting to see which should we do next in the near future. So meanwhile, check out the Twitch stream, 7 p.m. this Friday. Now, since we're on the topic of video games, just today, actually, we got some new information about WWE 2K16. And not just information, I thought it was just text. We got 3 videos. So, first off, we got Seth Rollins' entrance, we got Finn Balor, and we got some gameplay action between the two, alongside a ton of information. Now, we're going to be delving into all this bit by bit. I want to get your feedback first on the graphical aspect, because, of course, this does look similar to WWE 2K15. The 3 of us have played it, be it long or short. I want to get your feedback.
Yeah, it looks like 2K15. I don't think there's much else to say.
Yeah, it looks, the graphics, I don't know how much different they look. I didn't play a ton of 2K15. I played a little bit of it, and the gameplay looks just as solid. I don't know if they've changed some of the mini games. I know the reversal system's changing, but as far as the actual gameplay and graphics go, they look solid. And 2K15, that was not their problem. Content was the issue.
So I'm going to summarize some of the things that they have identified, or at least I saw from the video. Now, first off, in the match, you will have a limited amount of counters that will replenish as the game progresses. Of course, up until this point, you press R2 or the right bumper in Xbox and you counter. But the problem is that if everybody's really good at the game, you just keep countering and countering and countering. So this is their way of battling that spamming. So you really got to decide, when do you want to counter? Do you want to let it all go at the beginning and then replenish? Or maybe you rather take a little bit of a beating, and when the guy's really ready to put you away, then you become a lean, mean countering machine. The other thing that I'm not too sure, I want to ask you guys how you feel about this, is that last year they put in this chain wrestling thing that happened at the beginning of the match. They're actually expanding on it. So they're going to add way more things with it. They were a little bit descriptive, but I still want to read a little bit more about that before we move on. I want to get your feedback on the simple fact that they are adding more of that. They're going more into simulation.
See, with the chain wrestling stuff, it was fun for the first couple of times, and then you realize, like, you hit that point where it's like, oh, okay, time to do the chain wrestling again. And if they're adding more of that, it just seems like there's more of a margin of error for that to happen. Like, they're moving away from the fun parts. Plus, you got to think, like, we play the wrestling games online against each other, right? You're just adding more moving factors into the equation for as far as input latency and making that almost unplayable. So I'm curious to see if they can, like, find a fine-tuned thing. I'm not a big fan of more things but it is what it is.
Does every match have to start like that?
Not every match. At least in 2K15, if you were like a super heavyweight, yeah, you could turn it off. And if you were a super heavyweight, you can't do the chain grappling. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that you just can turn it off because, as Keith said, it's cool, but I just want to run at you and pile drive you.
But if you can turn it off, and that's the funnest way to do it, why are they putting more of it in?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it. I think Ryan likes the simulation aspect the most. That being said, the gameplay beta looked really smooth, and I did like that.
I like that it could sometimes happen, but not every match starts with chain wrestling. So why should every match in this game start with chain wrestling? I just want to make sure if you want to have a guy just boot a guy from the beginning of the match, that can happen.
Mm-hmm. It makes it feel formulaic, like every match kind of falls into a formula because, okay, so this is the part where we do the chain wrestling. Okay, we've gone through that. Now let's get to the big moves. It makes the matches feel less unique, in my opinion.
I want to actually break down just a brief summary of some of the changes. These are not all of them, but my career is back, and these are, I'm quoting a direct article from IGN. I'll tweet it tomorrow on a Wednesday. My career is back, and this time it goes a lot further, all the way to you gaining admission to the WWE Hall of Fame. Create a diva, create a show, create an arena, and create a championship are back in. Create a show, that is a different name. So I don't know if by create a show, do they mean like create a story?
We hope. We really hope.
God, we hope so bad.
Please, for so many things. And create an arena. If you can import the PNGs like you can the wrestlers, oh my goodness,
the fate
man.
of Fight Night depends on it.
Yes. WWE Universe. Wrestlers can now be booked to multiple shows. Online has been overhauled. Define overhauled, that's all it says. 3-man commentary team. JBL joining King and Cole. Ladder match, handicap match, and tornado tag team matches have been added back in. It's crazy that wasn't in last year. Like,
yes.
Yeah. No loading screens between entrances, and you can assault opponents during their entrance. So they're going all the way back to Raw from Xbox One, so you can actually interfere during an entrance. What
Xbox
you guys think
original.
about that? Yeah. Right, damn, yeah. What you guys think about the fact that they're adding that?
It's good. It's a good option. I wouldn't want it every time, especially online if you have someone jumping you every time you play, but I like it for an occasional moment.
Exactly. From what I could tell from the entrances, it seems like there's a predetermined window for when you can actually do that. So once again, maybe it ends up feeling formulaic. Like if you're going to play against a person, guess what? You're probably going to get attacked.
It just becomes that thing like in Mario Kart, how you can get the boost. If someone just gets it down, they'll just attack you every single entrance, and that could get really annoying.
Exactly.
And I hate how they have so many overlays. There's a huge circle on the upper right with a countdown from like 14. I hope you can get rid of that, or at least they should make it smaller because it is really intrusive. And there's another one on the upper left, so really annoying. A last quick tidbit I want to bring up here is that they've also changed the way you kick out of pins. So it is similar to the chain grapple from last year. Basically, when somebody's being pinned, there are two circles that are going in opposite. So one's counterclockwise, the other one's clockwise, and then you got to hit X at the set amount of time. And if you miss it, it'll change again. So basically, it makes it harder to kick out of pins. I actually like this change because it was obvious after a while how to kick out. So this is a really good way of changing things up. So overall, Ryan, I want to get your feedback. We've seen two entrances, gameplay, and we have a ton of information. Last week you were kind of like, cool, whatever. Is that changing?
It seems like they're doing everything I wanted them to do, which was basically add to my career mode and put all the crap back in from 2K14. So far, so good. So we'll have to see how it looks when it comes out.
Yeah. From that point of view, I agree. I had a moment while I was watching Finn Balor's entrance where I almost realized, hey, maybe they shouldn't take this simulation approach. It was when Finn Balor was doing his entrance, maybe go back and watch it and disagree with me if you feel differently, but it just felt so lifeless. The crowd was facing the ring, nobody was looking at Finn while he was doing his whole stick, and it just felt lifeless, the entire thing. JBL Cole and Jerry Lawler were doing their commentary thing that has felt lifeless since the beginning. The whole thing just something felt very off about it. And I don't know, it just made me realize maybe that isn't the approach they should go.
Yeah, exactly. I get exactly what you mean, where they want to go really simulation, but when somebody's coming out, with Finn Balor, a huge appeal of his entrance is that when he does the Randy Orton-like pose, everybody does it with him every single time. And here the audience doesn't give a crap. So if you want to go simulation...
they're not even looking at him.
Yeah, exactly. At least look at the guy. Just, I don't know, some kind of animation. It's a little crazy, but if you're going
If you're going to go that far, go all the way. Yeah.
Exactly. So, the game comes out in October. Obviously, we are going to get it for... I'm going to get it for PS4, so maybe we can get something online going when that comes out, and then we will talk about it then, and anything else coming out in the between time. So, now before we go to Keith's poem, that's going to be really deep, and odds are you'll be so tired from it, because it's just going to overwhelm you, that we're going to go to the questions first, and then we will hear that. I cannot wait. So, Keith, take it away.
That's right. And don't forget, friends in Listenerland, if you want to send us a question yourself, you can send it via Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, email, a whole bunch of different ways. Send it over to Byte That Cast, respectively. So our first question this week comes from the True Prince of Pro, friend of the show. And he asks, okay, this week I struggled to try and come up with a topical question, so I jumped to the past, specifically SummerSlam 1997. If you don't know, this was the night that Owen Hart accidentally broke Steve Austin's neck via botched piledriver. So what I want to know is, do you guys think that this was one of the best things that happened to Austin's career? Now, I'm not saying the broken neck is a good thing, but in this scenario, it really benefited Austin's career. If you think about it, Austin was unable to wrestle, and Creative was tasked with the goal of keeping him constantly featured on the show in creative ways. This made Austin's career more badass, and the fans loved him even more. And then he says, rest in peace, Roddy Piper. So, what do you guys think?
This is a really good question because I'm not so sure he would have became what he became. Because those times where he couldn't wrestle and it was all character development was super integral to him becoming who he was. And then almost the fact that the neck issues kind of forced him to kind of go out a little bit earlier than he may have wanted to, just kind of encapsulated his career as just a small window where he was just the hottest thing going, and then he went out kind of on top. He never burnt out and stayed around too long, never outstayed his welcome, and just left people wanting more. So I feel like he would have still made it, but I don't know if he would have been as big as he was.
Yeah, it was a blessing in disguise because if you think back at the most memorable moments in the Attitude Era with Stone Cold, they're not in the ring. They're not a wrestling match. They're segments. They're things that happened that people talk about, and they can't even tell you a single match probably other than Austin The Rock. So this is a way of, like Ryan said, you don't overstay your welcome. You stay there. You had longevity. You extended your career because I can't say
longevity is the word you're looking for.
Longevity. Thank you. And then it had him change his fighting style, which that part did suck, because after that, a lot of things from his moveset were eliminated. But when you think about all the positives, once again, blessing in disguise.
In the moveset, though, forcing him to be more of a brawler just fit that character more, though.
Yeah, that's true.
You're right. Yeah, I think, like, when he got injured, Austin was on an upward momentum shift. Like, whether he got injured or not, he was headed towards being the hottest thing in wrestling. I just think that kind of it accelerated it a little bit, because if he was an active wrestler, they probably would have stretched it out a little bit more. But I think, like you mentioned, Ryan, it's actually an amazing point I never even thought of. It helped Austin go out on top. He didn't overstay his welcome. He faded away. He never even faded away. He went out at the right time and didn't fade away. So yeah, it's interesting in that point. It's weird to think that somebody breaking their neck would be a positive for their career, but
that happens in wrestling a lot. Whenever they get injured, it's a way of making them relevant without burning them out. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for the question. And on to the next one from Travis Hayes. And he asks, how would you feel if Adam Rose joined the Wyatt family as Leo Kruger?
I would be okay with it. I'm not so sure how it would work, because the Leo Kruger character wasn't quite like a Wyatt family type of guy, because they're more like these backwoods hick guys from Louisiana, whereas Kruger's from South Africa. So I don't know how that would work, but we know now, thanks to Instagram and rumors, that he's kind of doing a thing with Brad Maddox now as like kind of these, beef mode?
Beef mode, yeah.
See, but Brad Maddox was doing a thing a couple weeks ago with Heath Slater. Like the house show that I went to, those two were a tag team. So I don't know if this has any longevity or this is just kind of one of those.
But they were posting on social media and all. There are pictures as opposed to just, hey, this happened. Like
they might have been experimenting
account
with tag partners for Maddox, and maybe they're landing on Kruger as the new, or Adam Rose. He's still going by Adam Rose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, I guess it would be cool. But I've said it, we talked about it for a while last week, where I think regardless of it's Adam Rose or Leo Kruger, we should have a conversation about the person playing these characters, and then he needs to believe in those characters more before we even think, hey, who's he going to be with? Forget about who he's going to be with. He really needs to figure himself out, which, I mean, look at him. He's with Brad Maddox here, but then he was tweeting pictures about Leo Kruger like just 2 weeks ago. So who is he? I don't know.
You can tell that he wants to be Leo Kruger, that maybe he's not a fan of the Adam Rose character, but it's the hand you were dealt. Like, as I said last week, I think Leo Kruger is the greater of the two, but who knows how much that's actually saying, right? So the Wyatt family thing itself is a bit of a weird fit, because like Ryan said, even though they're both crazy, I'm gonna get you people, they're very different under that umbrella. So I don't know.
You wouldn't put the boogeyman in the Wyatt family, would you?
Come on to get you.
The boogeyman would be incredible in the Wyatt family. No, he wouldn't. On to the next question. Thank you, sir. Next question comes from Kieran WEEE on Twitter, and he asks, what do you think WWE will do with Daniel Bryan when he returns?
I imagine he's going to have a lot of upper mid-card feuds. Maybe he'll get some title shots, but he'll hang around that upper echelon. I don't see him ever becoming world champion again, though.
I don't see him returning. So, I see him returning for something like Shawn Michaels and what he did with Daniel Bryan's storyline. He's going to be involved in something, but not physically.
Even after hearing interviews with like Sam Roberts and Cheap Heat, where he said he's coming back.
I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much he wants to come back. Can he come back? Like, can his body not turn to dust when he comes back?
He apparently has approval from certain doctors.
See, here's the thing, though. Like, reading his book, I can understand so much more of the situation. Like, regardless of what doctors say, like, whatever is actually physically wrong with his body, in his mindset, he just goes. He does not have a lower speed for wrestling. Like, he got a ton of concussions in Ring of Honor. And in even his book, he says, like, yeah, I pretty much neglected my body because This is what I do. And I don't think that the WWE, regardless of how healthy he'll become, they don't want another Chris Benoit. I'm not saying that's the things that he's going to do, like double murder, suicide, nothing like that crazy. But knowing that in a book, this guy's saying, yeah, I'm just going to do this speed. And as a company, they go, well, go for it. You just had like over 5 concussions. It's not going to happen.
I mean, think of it like Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle's pretty much the same thing, how they released Kurt Angle like for his own health.
Yeah.
And he just kept doing it. It's I honestly don't think they're going to clear him again, and I don't even know if they should at this point, in complete honesty.
And do you think they're keeping him on the payroll then to kind of not do what happened to Kurt Angle? Because Kurt,
of course,
if they release
absolutely.
Bryan, he's going to go out there and he's going to wrestle somewhere.
Look,
Plus, or go ahead.
No, let's think about it. He is the husband of Brie Bella, who's in Total Divas. He is an incredible wrestler that can be not a great trainer, because even in his book, he says he's not a good trainer, but he has a great mindset for the business. He is not going to be out of a job in WWE, even if he never wrestles again.
Plus, everybody loves Daniel Bryan, right? He's a good quote-unquote media ambassador in that respect.
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world to keep him, but I was saying, do you think that's part of the motivation to keep him is because they know if it ever came time when his contract's up to release him, there's a good chance he would go and find a place to wrestle.
And he's flat out said that in an interview. He said, if I don't wrestle here, I'm going to wrestle somewhere else. He said that a week ago. So he's openly saying that,
And I mean, from a WWE standpoint, I would be terrified of him wanting to wrestle again. Because like you said, you're never going to see him as a champion again, right? At this point, it would be hard to invest anything in Daniel Bryan championship-wise, just because he's been hurt so frequently this last little while. But that's not going to be good enough for anybody. Everybody's going to want to see him as the top guy, and they're not going to settle for anything less. So from a WWE standpoint, I think the concept of him returning would be terrifying. But thank you for the question. The next one comes in from the Brocast podcast. Little plug there. Podcast. And they ask, do you think it's wrong for WWE to promote Raw around Lesnar being there, but he comes out for only 3 or 4 minutes and doesn't really do a thing?
I think Brock Lesnar is such a big deal that you do have to promote him if he's going to be there. Sure, yes. He only this was definitely one of his weaker appearances, no doubt. But it's still going to sell tickets. People still just want to see Lesnar.
People know the deal with Lesnar. They know they're not going to get a random match on Raw. He's not going to talk or probably even sweat for that matter.
Oh, he's going to sweat because that's all he does.
Well, he's not going to sweat more than he usually does by just walking. So I think it does suck, but it's like whenever you hear there's going to be a WWE title match in a house show. It's like, oh my God, but that's totally not going to change hands yet. I'm still excited. It's a similar situation.
Most crowds don't even get to see Lesnar, so it's somewhat of a treat regardless.
And I mean, you should just be happy about the fact that with Lesnar comes Heyman, right? So you're not going to get much out of Brock Lesnar if he's just showing up. But for everything you don't get from Lesnar, you get from Heyman 10 times back. So yeah. I think it evens out at the end of the day from that respect. So thank you for the question. The next one comes in from Clay C. And he asks, do you believe Cesaro should be in the championship picture?
Well, I sort of said yes in the other segment. He does deserve to be there. And I think he is going to be there for a long time. Just be involved in every way, shape, or form. Multi-man matches, one-on-one matches. Will he win the title? I don't think so.
Right now, I don't think he deserves to be in the world title picture. I just don't think he's quite reached that level of overness. I mean, the crowd loves him, no doubt. But I don't see him in that main title picture just yet, but I think he's getting to that point where he's solidifying himself potentially as like an upper mid-card guy, and if he can hang around there for a while, because I mean he's gone up and down a lot, so if he can kind of etch himself on that level, then eventually I think he can move up to the main event level.
Agreed. I think, Juan, you said it best earlier in the show, where Cesaro is going to be one of the greatest number one contenders in history. I think he could be in that title picture, but it's just hard to see him as that champion. And I think that's kind of where the glass ceiling is, in complete honesty. But thank you for the question. And our final question for this show comes from our friend Barnaballs, Barney Johnson. Balls, balls, balls. He asks, what's your favorite submission move? His is probably the guillotine choke.
I'm just going to go first. I was going to say Dean Ambrose. Dean Malenko with his Texas Cloverleaf. I love the Cruiserweight division in WCW, and just the way he did the Cloverleaf, I remember I always felt like he was going to break that person's back, and I love that move.
Gonna get a little controversial here, but I actually did really like the Crippler Crossface. And when I was a kid and
move.
like wrestling with friends, that was my go-to submission move that I always did. I really enjoy that submission. It just sucks that it now has like a big asterisk over it, and it's kind of like
Cesaro's doing it now.
It's still like you can't help but think about Benoit every time you see it. It kind of sucks, but I did love the move.
My favorite is one that really gets forgotten in wrestling history, and that's Charlie Haas's Haas of Pain, where he would cross the people's legs and then like put his foot in like where their knees crossed, I think it was, and basically turned his opponent into a C, where he would lift him up and then basically like stretch his back out to a point where it looked like it would snap almost instantly. I think it's one of the most underrated finishers of all time.
Also like the figure 4 leg lock, just because that's also really fun to do on people.
Now you got to move up to the figure 8. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if I get that flexibility.
You got to do that DDP yoga, man.
I got to sign up for the submission sorority.
Well, how much of the DVD? Anyway, thanks to everybody for the awesome questions. Remember, if you want to be involved, as Keith said, bytethatcast@gmail.com, bytethatcast on social media. Use the hashtag AskBT. That's our way of knowing that you're sending questions for the podcast, for Square Roundtables, hashtag AskArtino. Ladies and gentlemen, I said it, and it is happening now. Cue the music. Keith Poshik, take it away.
We're going to get that smooth jazz going right about now.
Keith, go do it. Do it.
All right, it's poetry time. So I'm coming off the heels of Ryan McNulty, both poet and scholar last week. Let's be real, you set the bar a little high, didn't you?
I can't help myself, man. The talent just bleeds from me.
So I want to give people a more realistic shot. I want to set the bar about as low as I can this week. And you talked about a superstar in yours. I really want to talk about a time in wrestling history. So without further ado, here is my poem. With a tear in my eye and my heart in a funk, this is the story of how we lost CM Punk. The Royal Rumble, January 24th, 2013. This was the last time Punk would be seen. 43 minutes in the Rumble. It was a hell of a match. Then it was all ruined by Kane in slacks. Move on to the next day. Reports start to come in. Punk's gone? Our heads start to spin. A sabbatical? He walked out? Please, Punk, come back. We all hoped and prayed, but his career went black. Months pass, we hear nothing, but we won't let it go. Crowds chant, CM Punk, at every single show. But finally, an interview, and Punk tells it all. It comes off a bit jaded, and our interest falls. But wait, a new chapter. Punk's off to the cage. It seems like his story will turn a new page. So fear not, friends, we'll see him again in a different kind of fight. But it will be none of that fake shit, according to Dana White.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
That was amazing.
Well,
that was really, really good.
Yeah.
I think you set the bar higher.
Oh.
Okay, now guys, I can't be on the podcast next week, totally.
Yeah.
Because
Pressure is on. Juan.
Wow, that was amazing, Keith.
Well, thank you.
Well, I mean, I guess the only thing left, once again, remember...
It's a good note to end it on.
Yeah. Remember the contest ends August 16th. Bytethatcast@gmail.com. UK, USA, Canada. That is where you can enter from. $30 Amazon gift certificate. Listen to what Keith said. I mean, You can't win, Keith. I'm just going to point that out right now.
Oh,
Yeah,
but I could use that money.
Well, I guess
I need my WWE Mad Libs and toothbrushes.
we can work on that. But yeah, for everything else, Mr. McNulty, take it home.
All right, thanks, Juan. So remember what he just said. You can enter your submissions to the SummerSlam Poetry Contest until August 16th. Send it to bytethatcast@gmail.com. For everything else, make sure to hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel if you have not already. youtube.com/bytethatcast. Fight Night returns. Season 2 premieres this Thursday, then Friday over at Twitch TV/Byte That. Me and Juan are going to be playing some wrestling games, streaming, so make sure to go over there and hit that follow button if you haven't, because that'll notify you anytime we're streaming. Of course, we also have a discussion video up this weekend, and as well, you can check out our social media on Twitter at ByteThatCast. You can check out our Instagram by searching Byte That. We're on Wrestling Amino as Byte That, and of course, you can send emails, like I said, bytethatcast@gmail.com, facebook.com/ByteThatCast. We're everywhere. We're everywhere. There's the new FightNight.com. You can check that out as well.
Yeah, more plugs.
And for everything else, ByteThat.com. So many plugs. All right. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next week.